computer.
What
Okay.
did you say, Claudia?
It's a prayer for rains. What's that?
Oh.
Geshem?
Yeah, after Shemini Atzeret, we start.
Oh, it's sharing, okay.
Okay, hold on. Let me.
What did I just get?
Okay, here we go.
Okay.
Can you see this? What is Shemini Atzeret?
Yes.
Okay, so let's take turns in reading the paragraphs because it's very. By the way, I like this website. It is a reform website and has a lot of answers to a lot of questions. So let's start with Marsha. Each take 2 paragraphs because there aren't many of us today. So Marsha, you want to start?
Okay, I'm sorry.
Uh-huh.
Although Hoshana Rabbah may technically be the last day of Sukkot, the rabbis decided to treat Shemini Atzeret and Simchat Torah as part of Sukkot.
By the way, when is Shemini Atzeret? Do you know, in the week, this week?
What day? Or
Yeah, what day?
Wouldn't it be a Friday?
Saturday, right?
It's Friday to Saturday, and then Sunday is Simchat Torah. Mhm.
Right.
Okay, go ahead.
Treated as part of Sukkot because its significance is unequivocally informed by Sukkot itself. 2 cryptic references in the Torah cause the confusion about the status of Shemini Atzeret. In both Leviticus and Numbers, God commands that the 8th Shemini day, referring to Sukkot,
Oh, hold on. So the number Shmone, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Shmone is 8.
right,
So Shemini is the 8th. Go ahead.
8th, is to be a sacred occasion, and Atzeret generally translated as solemn gathering.
Right. So it's not only that. Atzeret, it also means something else. Ilana, can you read this paragraph?
The inherent problem is that no one really knows exactly what atzeret means. Possibly it comes from the word atzar means stop, atzor means stop, and thus implies that we are to refrain from work. On the other hand, atzeret may also be defined by its textual context, which implies that it is some sort of deliberate extension of the prior 7 days. This lack of verbal clarity is likely the reason why the rabbinic sages seem to struggle with the precise meaning of the holiday.
Right. Take another paragraph, and sorry for the advertisement in the right corner.
Oh,
The earliest rabbinic reference to Shemini Atzeret calls it Yom Tov, האחרון של החג. Yom Tov אחרון של החג, the
Yeah,
last day of the festival.
right.
The
So in other words,
Talmud-
Acharon means the last, right?
Right.
And I see your confusion because I would also read it as Aharon, like the name of Aaron, but in this case, it's Acharon, the last day of Hag, of holiday. Mhm.
Right. The last day of the festival, the Talmud, Ta'anit, 2431a, however, declares the 8th day is a festival in its own right. At the same time, the Talmud attempts to distinguish it from Sukkot, as there are 70 temple sacrifices given throughout Sukkot, compared to only 1 given on Shemini Atzeret. This distinction was only theoretical, as the temple had been destroyed 5 centuries prior to the reduction of the Talmud.
Good. Okay. How about Arlene? Do you want to read, or is it hard for you?
no, I've got my magnifying glass.
Okay,
Thank you.
go ahead.
Cutting through this puzzle, excuse me, the most appealing depiction of the holiday may be that of Samson Raphael Hirsch, a 19th century Orthodox rabbi who lived in Germany. He infers the meaning of the holiday from the word atzeret. Did I say that right?
Atzeret.
Atzeret, which he renders as to gather or to store up. Accordingly, on this 8th day of Sukkot, the final day of celebration, we must store up the sentiments of,
Uh-huh.
Wait.
Wait, here we go.
where was I?
Sentiment.
A sentiment of gratitude and devotion acquired throughout the entire fall holiday season. Nearly 2 months will pass until we celebrate another holiday, that of Hanukkah.
And do another paragraph. So you heard in my sermon about Israel that we came right before Rosh Hashanah, and it was impossible to do any paperwork and any like, you know, to complete all the paperwork that we needed, because everything was closed for like a month almost, because, you know, once you start with Rosh Hashanah, it's like it doesn't stop, right? Okay, so go ahead. I'll help you with this so you can see. Okay, so next paragraph.
How is it different from Sukkot? Although the observances of Shemini Atzeret generally share the characteristics of the rest of Sukkot, there are 4 significant differences. The first is that there is no more shaking of the lulav and etrog. Second is that although we have our meals and recite Kiddush in the, hold it, Kiddush
Right
in
here.
the
Sukkah in this.
Sukkot, though customs vary, we no longer say the blessings to sanctify us through the commandment to dwell in it, as we did the previous 7 days. The third is that in the synagogue, after the Torah reading, we recite the memorial prayer, Yitzhak.
Right, right. So we are going to recite the score on Friday. So I will include the score as part of Friday night service, which would actually make sense because since we don't have Shabbat morning, and then Sunday is already Simchat Torah. By the way, we're planning on doing it outside. I'm still polishing in my head all the details, how we're going to do it. But if the weather will permit, we'll have it outside in the parking lot, Simchat Torah. So, okay. Judy, you want to read? And finally?
Sure. And finally, the special prayer for rain is, okay, where am I? Oh, okay, I see. You just put it towards the bottom. Okay, sorry. And finally, the special prayer for rain is added to the repetition of Musav, and thus begins the period of an additional call for rain in our prayers. You're right, Claudia, which lasts until Passover. It is customary for the leader of the Geshem prayer to wear a kiddle, as was done during the divine judgment of the high holidays. Wearing the garment indicates that this is the season of divine judgment for the future year's rainfall. The time when we pray that God's goodwill may afford us the appropriate amount.
Right. So it's interesting. It says the appropriate amount. So what's the period of time when we pray for rain? So we start after Shmini Atzeret, and then how long do we pray till? When do we stop?
Passover.
It's over.
Right.
Passover, yeah.
Because I mean, it's just logical that as much as we believe that God can create miracles, so we are realistic about those miracles, right? And it's not like we believe that God is the wizard, right? So it's unlikely that in Israel it will rain from Passover to Shemini Atzeret, and therefore we only pray for the Jew, Morid Hatal, for that period of time, because there's no way there's going to be rain. So
Actually, this is the end of summer. It's still kind of warm in Israel in Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur.
right.
And it's really parched.
Yeah,
So
but we
the-
can see, but Ilana, we can see the first drop sometimes in October, once in a while.
Don't we
Yeah,
change,
well, you hope for it. You really hope for it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we changed the vote prayer
Actually,
to the
September, you
winter,
know,
don't
you
we?
have those beautiful flowers on the hills, the chatzavim, and you know, fall is coming, and they start praying for the rain.
yeah.
Yeah.
And the Kittel, even in the conservative synagogue, if you go to conservative synagogue, when they start praying for the Geshem, for the rain, they wear the Kittel. So
The Kittel is, that's a tzitzit, like it's
a
kind of
white,
like an undergarment with
yeah,
a,
like a white shirt, sort of.
right, with the
It's
tzitzit.
also, it's the same thing that the chosen, the groom is wearing.
Groom wears, yeah.
Groom
Is-
wears.
Is that also what the Hasidim typically wear all the time under their clothes too, right?
No. They're wearing, the Orthodox Jews wear talit, like a tzitzis. They're wearing tzitzis around their
Oh,
waist.
okay, so that's different than what you're
Yeah,
talking
kittel
about.
is on
Here's
top. Kittel is a white
like a robe.
robe,
Like
but
Yeah,
like a
okay.
vest, I
short.
think.
It's not like a
Okay.
robe for high holidays. It's a shorter robe.
The groom in an Orthodox wedding.
Right.
wears that.
Right, exactly.
So is this when we change the avot prayer too? From the summer months to the winter months too, don't we?
No, this is, no. It's in the Givurot. The prayer for Geshem is in
Right, that's what I meant, yeah.
Not about Givurot, yes. Okay. So
You want me to read it?
no, that's it.
Oh, okay.
Oh, wait, did you finish?
Yeah, I read the one paragraph.
Yeah, so that's it. Okay, let me
I read the end.
go now to a different, hold on. So I sent to myself. Okay, here we go. Oops. So what did we learn from this? What do we remember from the previous reading?
Well, see, you don't shake the lulav and etrog.
Right.
You don't have, did I remember correctly? You actually don't need to be residing in the sukkah at this point?
You don't say the blessing.
There's only one blessing.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the change of the prayer to the Gashem. So this Friday I will say, Morid brings the rain and
Brings the rain.
and that Shemini means the 8th, right? So it's the 8th day of Sukkot. And also Atzeret from the word Latzor, that we stop this holiday. And this one rabbi from 19th century, he said, what did he say, that inclusiveness? Yeah. Okay.
Do the Sephardic Jews have the same approach on all this? Because I know a lot of Talmudic things and rabbis talking about what's the meaning of it. Are they in sync with all this as well?
I believe so. Ilana, do you know if Sephardic tradition is similar?
Think so?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, in this we agree. This week, surprisingly, I've had the girls do the lulav and etrog almost every day, and sitting in the sukkah. Tony was funny. So Tony makes the sukkah from the tent that you buy for like $100 in Walmart that we use in the summer, and then he bought a tarp, and of course is something to put as a roof. Anyways, the nights were not bad. They weren't, the warmest, but not like the coldest either. So everyone in the family were like, no, we're not having dinner in the sukkah today. And there was like, I built it. We're having dinner in the sukkah.
That's it.
He made us sit in the sukkah every night, even just by that. But something, we would take things outside and put on the extra layer, whatever. And it was nice. It was really, really nice. So I must
There
say,
is a sense of peace when you're sitting inside a sukkah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
It's so different from just sitting at the table in the house. It's just,
Or even just eating outside on your deck. Yeah.
no, but it's different in the sukkah. It's just so cozy. And those of you who are friends with me on Facebook, you saw Sasha. She loves it. She just loves to be with us in the sukkah.
My daughter and her son slept out in their sukkah on Saturday night.
Wow, good for them. Very nice. Awesome. Okay, so I found this teaching, which I thought it was really interesting. Sometimes I'm like, why put together if other people already have something good? So Shmini Atzeret, what is it, and how do we relate to this Hag in diaspora? First, Shmini Atzeret is mentioned. So let's see, who didn't go yet? Claudia.
Okay, 7 days ye shall bring an offering made by fire unto the Lord. On the 8th day shall be a holy convocation unto you, and you shall bring an offering made by fire unto Adonai. It is a day of solemn assembly. Ye shall do no manner of servile work.
So in other words, just like the first 2 days of Sukkot, well, the Reform have one, and in Israel is one. So is the 8th day is a holiday, just like Shabbat. So even if it didn't fall, it does fall on Shabbat this time. But even if it didn't fall on Shabbat, the 8th day would be also like Shabbat, the holiday that we would not do. We would not do any work. Do one more, Claudia.
Howbeit, on the 15th day of the 7th month, when ye have gathered in the fruits of the land, ye shall keep the feast of God 7 days. On the 1st day shall be a solemn rest, and on the 8th day shall be a solemn rest.
So in other words, why does it say on the 1st day? Because like I said, in Israel, it's only 1 day, right? In diaspora, when we are in diaspora, just like we have 2 Passover Seders, we have 2 nights at the end, we have 2 days of Rosh Hashanah. That's because we live in diaspora. I think Ellen didn't go yet. So Ellen, Numbers 29:36.
But ye shall present a burnt offering, an offering made by fire of a sweet, hold on, I have to, oops. I've lost the, okay. Sweet fire, savor unto the Lord 1 bullock, 1 ram, 7 he lambs of the 1st year without blemish. The bull offering brought for Shimon Eretz. And ye shall prepare a burnt offering for a sweet savor unto the Lord. 1 young bullock, 1 ram, 7 he lambs of the 1st year without blemish.
Right. So, I mean, another thing I wanted to mention, but I forgot, with regards to the Yortzeit, right? When we said that on Shmini Atzeret, we would say and remember our loved ones for the Yortzeit and for Yizkor, rather, for Yizkor. So the 3 festivals that we have, Sukkot, Passover, Shavuot, those are 3 festivals, also known as the pilgrimage festivals. Those are 3 times of the year that we say the Yizkor, the prayer for our loved ones who are no longer with us. The 4th time is, of course, on the day of Yom Kippur. But also those holidays, of course, associated with the offerings. And why do we give offerings? Because they also are the farming holidays, right? Either the harvesting or the seeding, the opposite. And so we want to ask God for blessing us with, of course, with a good harvest. And so, or thanking God for the good harvest. And hence we have all this offerings. And of course, we know that the Orthodox believe that once Messiah will come and the temple will be restored, then all the sacrifices will be back in place, right? And therefore, the majority of 613 commandments have to do with the proper way to sacrifice. And they're still in, because just in case when Messiah comes, so we know and we're reminded on how we're supposed to sacrifice. And who knows what there is I wouldn't say a tribe, but there's a group of people in Israel that still perform the sacrifice. Do you know of them? Do you know what they're called? Ilana, you must know.
No, I don't.
Ah,
Yeah,
the
I've heard of that.
Samaritans. Samaritans still perform sacrifices in Israel.
I thought of that and then thought, no, I must be wrong.
Yeah, no, they are.
That's very good for the Samaritan.
They still
Good
do.
job,
It's not
Claudia.
it's a very small group. It's about so how I know more. Maybe I'll find the picture. I'll ask. So I had the tour guide in Israel, a young lady, and she's friendly with that group. And she used to go there. She's from Ukraine, but she actually married somebody from Moscow. Actually, very famous singer who's like 29 years old or whatever. Separate story, but she studied about them, and she told us that she would go, and I saw pictures on Facebook that she would go on a Passover there, and they would accept her, and she would see them sacrifice the lamb for Passover.
Wow.
I'll see if I can ask her to send me a
Where do they do that?
somewhere in the south. I don't remember, but I will ask her for more information. But I know that it's done still. I will ask her to share pictures if she'll be willing to.
This might be a very silly question, but when one is saying about sacrificing, what actually happens with the animal? I mean, is it just sacrifice and that's it?
Oh no, it's see. So how do the priests? How did the priests? How could the priests provide for themselves? Like, what kind of food would they eat?
Sacrifice.
Sacrifice.
Whatever people brought to them.
So
Right, so somebody is eating this.
yeah, is it the Kohanim, the
Okay.
Kohanim and the Levites would eat.
Levites.
Yes.
Okay, I guess my question just was, is this now just wasted food or
No.
is it consumed? Okay.
No, it's consumed by Kohanim, which is pretty logical. I mean, they didn't have their land. They didn't make a living other than those sacrifices that people would bring. And so there's a whole set of rules that I don't know, God knows how many, like 100 commandments on how and when the Kohanim shall eat the food. And by the way, in Talmud, a lot of things. So okay, let me try to explain that. So there's certain things or prayers that are based on a certain time of the day. For example, when did you say Shema? And the Talmud opens with the laws when you say Shema, and it's not very certain. So because it says, well, you can say Shema in the morning and in the morning and at night, right? You have to say Shema. Okay, but in the morning, what does it mean in the morning? When exactly does the morning start and when exactly does the morning end? So does it end by noon? Can you say Shema by noon? And so they base it on the time, okay, when the Kohanim stop their consumption of the morning meal or stop the consumption of the night meal. So this consumption of the sacrifices also play into when you say Shema, if you read it down. It's very, very interesting. I hope that answers the
They
question.
do kill the animals first, right?
Before eating them, yes.
No, before sacrificing them.
They're brought unblemished, aren't
No,
they?
Right.
They're brought
Yeah,
already dead.
they don't burn them alive. No.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, they're not sadists. So, okay. Okay, so Alan, Alan, can you finish this paragraph?
After the temple.
Sure. No such historical reference appears in the Torah regarding Shavuot or Shemini Eretz. As a result, these holidays ran the risk of having their unique qualities lost throughout the years of national homelessness. The oral law, however, proceeded to elucidate an additional aspect latent in these festivals. As opposed to the biblical Jew, for whom agriculture stood at the center of existence, the post-temple Jew concentrates his religious life in the proverbial 4 cubits of Halacha.
Halacha is the first one. Mhm.
Therefore, the agricultural calendar was replaced by the Torah calendar. In this system, the festival of the first harvest, Shavuot, which commemorates the first opportunity to benefit from one's produce, was transformed into the holiday of Matan Torah,
Matan Torah, the giving of the Torah. Mhm.
the first step in the nation's acceptance of the Torah. Shemini Eretz,
Atzeret.
Teretz, which for the agrarian society was celebrated at the end of the year, evolved into the celebration of the completion of the Torah reading, Simchat Torah.
Okay, so do we understand that? Like I said, well, I use the word farmers, but it's agricultural. So those three festivals, including Pesach, right? They were tied to agriculture. But now that, especially in diaspora, we don't really tie to that. For us, the most significant meeting is a Toraitic meeting, right? So the Simchat Torah will be the completion of the reading of the Torah, and the Shavuot is actually the giving of the Torah. Okay, who didn't go yet? I guess everyone, sure, Don, go ahead.
Okay. The people of Jerusalem came to stand before God and the king, offered burnt and peace offerings, and made a feast for all his servants. Rabbi Yitzchak said, "This shows that one makes a feast when completing the Torah. We know that we celebrate the completion of the Torah at the end of the cycle, but those cycles ended at different times in Israel and in the diaspora."
Keep going.
Keep going. Okay. There in Cairo were two synagogues, one for those who from Israel and those from Babylonia. They offered different customs with regard to the reading of the portions of the Torah. The communities from Babylonia read a portion each week, as they do in Spain, thus completing the Torah each year. But communities of Israel do not follow this practice. Rather, they divide each portion into 3 sections and finish the Torah every 3 years. There is among them a custom to join all together and pray on the day of Simchat Torah and on the day of Matan Torah.
So the tradition, by the way, it's called a triennial, right? They break into 3 because, yeah, I mean, it makes sense because to read the whole portion, it's like a 40-minute just to read the Torah. So your service will be 4-hour long. Just like the one I went to in the African-American Jewish synagogue.
Oh, in Brooklyn?
It was 4 hours. If it
Yeah.
wouldn't be for the COVID, by the way, I wanted to take you guys there. Anyways, so it's divided into triennials. Again, in Reform, we read whatever. We really don't have the rule precisely, other than at least 3 verses per aliyah. But if you go to conservative synagogues use the triennial. So they break each Torah portion in 3 parts and read part 1 year, and then another year the second part, and then another year third part, and then back to the first, and so on and so forth. Also, so this Shabbat, we're actually going to read the very last Torah portion. So in other words, we don't differentiate. So we'll end the reading of the Torah on this Shabbat. And remember what we do when we finish reading of the Torah. What is the customary to do?
Run over to Brady.
Start all over.
In
Yeah.
the same breath.
We lift it and we say chazak chazak v'nitchazek, right? Strong, strong, you may be strong. And that's how you finish actually each chapter. After each 5 books, that's what we do. We say chazak chazak v'nitchazek, and then the congregation repeats. And so same thing would have been done if we had a Shabbat service on Shabbat service. Okay, I think we start with Marsha. So Marsha, can you read this and then the next paragraph?
Okay. There are those who complete the Torah every 3 years, but this is not the widespread practice. On the first day of the festival of Sukkot, they read from the portion of the festivals in Leviticus, and on the other days of the festival of Sukkot, the sections on the offerings of the festival. There is
Can-
no specific
Sorry.
mentioning of a reading for Simchat Torah.
Okay.
On the last day of the festival, we read all
Wait,
the,
hold on. Let's go back. On Simchat Torah, actually, what we do is traditionally, we read from the very beginning. I mean, we read the end, and then we read from Bereshit. So we read how Moses passes his wisdom and his leadership to Yoshua ben Nun, to Joshua ben Nun, right? And it says, "Velo kayam od kmo Moses," and it hasn't been yet the prophet in the world, the prophet like Moses who saw God from face to face. And then we run to the beginning and we read from Bereshit, right? From the beginning, the first few verses of Bereshit. So this is a tradition of at least a Reform synagogue. That's what we do. Okay. Marcia, you want to continue or somebody else?
on the last day of the festival, we read all the firstlings. But first we read the commandments and statutes which preceded, and then all the firstlings. Deuteronomy 15:19 through 16:17. And for Haftorah, and when Solomon had finished, 1 Kings 8:54 through 9:1. On the next day we read, and this is the blessing, Deuteronomy 33:1 through 34:12. And for Haftorah, and Solomon stood, 1 Kings 8:23 through 53. In the writings of the Gnome, we find an additional reason for
Sorry, it's Geonim, the sages. Geonim.
In the writings of the Geonim, we find an additional reason for this reading, one which is relevant even according to the custom of the communities of Israel. In order to juxtapose the blessing of the king Shlomo to the blessing of Moshe, Machzor Vitri.
Okay. Ilana, you want to read now it came to
Can I just ask, are they trying to draw a parallel between King Solomon
Yep.
and Moses in the Haftorah?
Yep.
So the equivalent of Bereshit is when Solomon comes to power? Is that what it's saying?
Yes, and then Solomon
And Solomon's power ends.
yeah, and exactly.
Right. So you go from the end of Solomon to the beginning of Solomon in the Haftorah.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, scroll, okay, right. Now it came to pass after the death of Moses, the servant of the Lord, that Adonai spoke unto Joshua, the son of Nun, Moses' minister, saying, our custom of reading the opening chapter of Yoshua as the Haftarah on Simchat Torah appears for the first time in the writing of Ritz Giyat, Ari Yitzchak Ibn Giyat. The reason is well understood as this chapter immediately follows the end of the Torah, which is read on this day. Once the Babylonian custom of completing the cycle each year was accepted by communities throughout the world, and consequently, וזאת הברכה is read on Simchat Torah even in Israel. The opening chapter of Yoshua has evolved as a standard haftarah for Simchat Torah. This phenomenon reflects in strictly halachic term this conceptual transition of the day from Shemini Atzeret to Simchat Torah. Wow,
Yeah.
I didn't know that. The transformation, right?
Yeah, the Claudia, can you read?
Yes, it is customary on this day, the day on which we complete the reading of the Torah, to sing all types of praises of the Torah and to rejoice in all types of celebration. And this day was called the Day of Simchat Torah. In the diaspora, we do not feel this transformation as much as those in Israel might feel it, because this day is split into two here. But the essence of Shmini Atzeret, according to the sages, is that it has turned a day of into a day of rejoicing and celebrating the completion of the Torah cycle.
And of course, we've seen many pictures of synagogues celebrating Simchat Torah. It is customary to unroll the scroll. Alice and I are thinking of putting out actually a long table in the parking lot, and just her and I unroll the small Torah scroll that we have, you know, to keep up with the tradition so people can stay in a socially distancing manner and be able to still celebrate. I mean, it's just a shame. It's such a beautiful holiday. Did I mention the story of how I met Tony to you guys?
Yeah, during Simchat Torah, wasn't it?
So
I think you mentioned it to the congregation.
Right, I did. But well, for those of you who don't know, so it was on, I think on my last year of school, the cantorial school at JTS, that we went with a bunch of friends to what's this temple? Bnei Jeshurun in the city. They used to celebrate Simchat Torah outdoors. They would close several blocks, and I did come there, like, you know, some young Jews come to meet another person, and not this time though. I went with a bunch of friends, and we were dancing with the Torah. So somebody gave me Torah for the Hakafot, because you know, somebody in your 20s, if you want to dance with the Torah. So I received the Torah. I'm dancing with the Torah, and my friend said, let's go, because we have a reservation. Let's go have dinner. So I was looking for someone to pass the Torah to, and I see this young gentleman, and I asked if he'll be willing to take the Torah from me. He said yes. I gave him the Torah, and then we left the crowd. It was a very tight. I mean, a lot of people. So we left, like we walked through a block and a half. And my girlfriend says, so what's with the guy who passed the Torah to? I'm like, what do you mean? She says, he looked kind of cute. I'm like, I don't know. I mean, I didn't even notice. It was just so crowded. She's like, I think you should go back. I said, are you out of your mind? I'm not going to be able to find him. It's just so many people. But I followed her direction. You know, I'm like, you know what? Fine, let me find him. So I went back, and I was looking for a Torah. There were maybe 4 scrolls altogether that people danced with. So I found him because he was still holding the Torah. And I just sort of faced him, and I said, hi. And he asked for my name. I said, you know, I told him my name. So I said, I have to go because my friends are waiting. And he, with one hand, pulled out his business card. It's like, can you call me? and I left. And then I called. I actually didn't call him. I decided I'll be the modern girl. So I emailed him from my old computer that I found in the garbage. He responded to the email. The rest is the history. So that was Tony.
Nice story.
Yes, very bashert.
Yeah.
Also, I remember I asked, when he asked my name, I said, Ina. He says, you speak Russian? I said, yes. And, you know, Tony almost doesn't have any accent. I said, and he said, oh, I do too. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, yeah, my parents are from Ukraine. So that was, anyway, I like to tell the story. I think it's very neat.
It's a nice story.
Yeah. I hope not to repeat it next year. If I do, stop me and tell me that you already know it.
No,
We'll hear it again.
That would be
no, it's good. It's a great story.
It's nice
you
to
can make
hear.
a movie or a book or
a
something.
fun
Right.
topic for some time. We can all share how we met our spice.
Yes. So that's it for this one. Let me see. Hold on one sec. So on Simcha, more on Simchat Torah. So here we go. Simchat Torah. Core concepts. Okay. Benjamin of Tudela. Itineraries. Arlene, you want to read that one?
2 large synagogues are there, one belonging to the men of the land of Israel, and one belonging to the men of the land of Babylon. The men of Babylon are accustomed to read a portion every week. The men of Palestine do not do so, but divide each portion into 3 sections and finish the Torah at the end of 3 years. The 2 communities, however, have an established custom to unite and pray together on Simchat Torah and on Shavuot.
So again, it's just reiteration of what we learned in the previous text, right? That there are 2 traditions. Just to make it more clear that there are 2 traditions: to read the whole thing or to divide into 3, but nevertheless, they still come together and celebrate the end. Okay, the differences. Arlene, maybe one more, this paragraph 2.
Those in the east make Simchat Torah each and every year on Chag Sukkot. And in every city and state, they read the same Torah section, whereas those who live in Eretz Yisrael make their Simchat Torah every 3.5 years, and each village finishes at a different pace.
That's interesting, right?
3.5?
Yeah.
How do you get to that? What's the half year? I can understand the 3 years, but 3.5? That's weird.
It is. It was in the
Sort of like
previous
Leap year,
text,
there must be some left over.
right?
Yeah,
In
okay.
the previous we read, maybe it's like sometime in the middle of the year they are celebrating.
So, isn't there a difference in some ways of portions that are read in Israel compared to the
There is,
diaspora?
yeah, but and
1 week, that's a 1 week difference?
once I made a mistake, you know, when I think that it changes around Passover because of the 2 days that we celebrate. And so
Ah.
I actually followed 1 year, I think it was last year. Yes, it was last year because it fell on the Abigail's bat mitzvah. So I started following. I assigned the children the portion according to the Israel calendar, which was by 1 week off with a calendar in diaspora. And so there are a few months that we are like off by a week in the Torah.
So, at the end of Deuteronomy, where we're coming, this coming Shabbat, is Israel and the diaspora in sync at that point?
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
are the portions?
It comes together like towards the end of the summer. It actually comes together usually.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, but I after this time when I last year now I check both because I have the HIPCO calendar in my phone, and it gives me the Israel, like not the diaspora, but rather Israel calendar of the Torah portions, and that's what confused me. So, but we also have our diaspora calendar for the Torah portions. So good question. Ellen, you want to read Halacha 1?
Sure. The Halacha Hawan, the custom prevailing throughout Israel is that we complete the reading of the Torah within 1 year. We begin on the Shabbat after Sukkot by reading the portion in the beginning, Genesis 1.
So next Shabbat, that's actually going to be next Shabbat that we read the beginning.
Okay. On the second Shabbat, these are the generations of Noah, 6 through 9. On the third, and God said to Abraham, 12:1, and we continue on reading in this order, and we complete the Torah on Sukkot. There are some who complete the Torah every 3 years, but this is not the prevalent custom.
Right, but so another funny story about my husband. He went to yeshiva when his family came to America. The only good school, the public schools in Brooklyn weren't that good. So he went to yeshiva, and he wasn't behaving very well. So Rabbi called the yeshiva, you know, the rabbi of the yeshiva called his mom and complained that he wasn't behaving. She came back at the Torah lessons, at the text study. And she came back home and she's like, why we're not behaving? It's like, well, we just studied that last year. Why we have to study the same thing again? Yeah, Tony didn't know back then about the Torah cycle.
Reruns.
Ellen, one more.
Okay. Ezra instituted for Israel that the portion containing the curses in the book of Vayikra,
Vayikra.
26:3, should be read before Shavuot, and those in Devarim before Rosh Hashanah.
Mhm.
The prevalent custom is to read the portion of Bimidbar, Sinai, Numbers 1 through 420, before
You don't
Shavuot.
need to, don't worry about the numbers. Just say the names.
V'chayi-
Be'et Hanan.
V'chanan, after Tish B'Av, Atem Nifzarim, before Rosh Hashanah, and Tsar et Aron,
Savet Aharon.
before Pesach in the ordinary year of 12 months. Hence, on the Shabbats, 2 portions are read before the morning service. For example, Ishkaki Teretz.
Ishaki Tazria. So sorry, I gave you the one that, let me finish that one. I'm sorry. It's a lot of like,
That's fine. I'll try it.
okay. Ishaki
Well,
Tazria.
say the next one for me.
Okay. Vezot tiyeh Torah hametzorah.
Bechukotai
Good job.
and Bihar Sinai,
Uh-huh.
and so on. The purpose being to ensure the reading of the Torah shall be completed in 1 year, and that the portions above mentioned shall be read at their appointed periods.
Right. Let me see, Judy.
And Shlomo went to Jerusalem, stood before the Ark of the Covenant of God, and offered burnt offerings and peace offerings. And he made a banquet for all his servants. Rabbi Eleazar said, from here we learn that one makes a feast for the completion of the Torah.
So that it's celebrating completion of the Torah in Israel. So that going back to the times of temple, right? How they celebrate the completion of the Torah. One more, Judy. Zohar.
Zohar, on the 8th day of finale, 1 bull, 1 ram, the bearers of our tradition have explained. This is like a king who invited guests, and after he sent them away, he said to his household, you and I, let's make a small meal together.
Keep going.
And what is Atzeret? It means, as it says, Shmuel, this man will govern my nation. The word means malchut, right?
Yeah, so
malchut, kingship.
the word Etzer means malchut, kingship. That's a term in mysticism, right?
From the side of the upper Shekhinah, a large feast is made, while from the side of Malchut, a small meal. Want me to finish that?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And Yisrael is accustomed to rejoice on this day and call it Simchat Torah, and they crown the Sefer Torah with its crown, as the Sefer Torah is a hint to Tiferet, the Shekhinah, the crown of Tiferet.
And Shekhinah is another, right, as a term for the divine in mysticism. So we know that.
Right.
All right, we're gonna stop here. Yeah, I think because we sort of like the rest will be sort of reiteration. So thank you so much for joining today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Again, happy holiday, and I'm off next week, so no Torah study next week, but hopefully we will resume in 2 weeks.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Have a good week off.
Happy, healthy New Year, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.